course, I got no right to be pretending to...
Combat is shallow. You're not going to be timing any combos. This is not Devil May Cry. The way it kind of works is when you're in melee combat, square and triangle are associated left and right weapons. You can press square, square, square in order to hit with your left, 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 triangle, triangle, triangle to hit with your right, right, right. Whether you're standing still or pressing forward changes the kind of attack combo, and if you hold down the button, you'll get a different kind of attack, like spinning a cyclone blade above your head or knocking someone in the air. With the blast, it's just shooting, 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 or you can just hold down the button to sometimes charge or fire a big blast. That is it. It gets very repetitive.
For a breaker game, the combat is quite intricate. MGK claims it's not Devil May Cry. Well, it can be. Upon mastery of the stunt system, you could play Breaker 4 like DMC, if you're smart enough. He bothers not mentioning melee button combination, which is the sole mechanic that every Breaker game has that allows you to play it like DMC. It specifically allows you to dictate how far enemies are knocked back at the end of a combo string, which allows you to extend your combo. There's even a combo meter that encourages players to play like hell with the promise of benefits for loot obtainment and whatnot. In other terms, the game encourages you to play it like a combo central hack and slash game. Like Devil May Cry.
But depth through multiple layers of shallow. Yeah, what might seem a little bit shallow at first glance actually has other elements to it. For example, it's not just your weapons that give you different attacks, your body parts do too.
So the gameplay isn't shallow? Just because he mentions EX actions and OP actions, which he should have mentioned in the combat is shallow section. But I suppose you have to make that top 10. Talk about cheap and lazy.
No transformations! Back in 1985, a Gundam series came out, the second ever Gundam series, Zeta Gundam. This introduced the idea of a transforming Gundam, one that would transform from a mobile suit mode to a flight form called a Wave Rider. This has become a Gundam staple since. There's always a Zeta-like suit in pretty much every series. There is no transformations in Gundam Breaker 4. There probably wasn't in 1 through 3 either, I don't really remember, but that is missing. I do understand it makes sense. This is a game about making custom mobile suits from a whole bunch of different parts. Amalgamating a transforming mechanic into that would be almost impossible and pretty disastrous, I would assume.
There never were any transformations in previous Breaker games. Ever. It's not even a featured ability in any of the trailers. He already mentions the technical nightmare that could be if they bothered adding it, so that only further debunks this point.
Building is half the game. Now, I've played Gundam Breaker 1 through 3 before. Those were my go-to games whenever I was traveling in Japan. On the train, Gundam Breaker. On a plane, Gundam Breaker. Hiding at work in a closet somewhere, Gundam Breaker. I never found the building to be as heavy an aspect in those games as it is in this one. I find them always changing, always adding new parts, getting addicted to adding cool color schemes. It just works out so well. The battle damage, everything, it's just so nice. Decals, you will be spending so much time building. Even if you don't like the nuances of painting up your Gundam and stuff like that, you will be just adding new parts to kind of get a new flow to your battle system, getting it just perfect for you. Also, making a mecha that looks kick-arse. This game has also added something called builder's parts. Now, these are parts that supplement aspects of your mobile suit. Now,
he mentions having played previous iterations of Breaker games to pass the time in Japan, which makes me question the validity of his complaint of the lack of transformations. MGK talks about the addition of builder's parts as if they were new, as if they weren't in GB3. I haven't played GB1 and GB2 to say if they had them, but that's a complaint to be.
Gunpla ads. Now you might think, what kind of positive point is this? I love Gunpla. My life is based around Gunpla. Quite literally. Every day, Gunpla. Live and breathe Gunpla. It's what I do, it's what I love. So just seeing the little ads added into the game is fantastic. It's just really, really, really cool. You can go up to the screen, watch it happen, and yeah, just watch a Gundam ad, an ad for some Gundam plastic model kits. It's a game about Gundam plastic model kits, aimed at people who like Gundam plastic model kits. So they put in some ads for Gundam plastic model kits. The sickness is real, and I love it. But
what? What kind of point is this to be making about positives of GB4? I mean, sure, they were always in GB3, but only as an Easter egg type of thing. This isn't a feature to be talking about as if it were game making or game breaking.
Addiction trigger. This isn't kind of funny, this game is definitely an addiction trigger. You may think you've got your Gundam addiction under wraps, you may not yet have a Gundam model kit addiction yet. This game will make sure that you do. Not only is there Gundam ads in the game, not only does the game feature a little shop where you can go buy in some Gunpla, where it actually features the boxes with the box arts on them and the little blurbs on the side of the boxes. You can't read them, it's blurred out, but it's still a nice attention to detail. But not just that, as you go through the game, smashing Gundams to bits, picking up new parts, those new parts will trigger you to want to build onto your new Gundam, and they may make you realize you've got a bit of a hole in your collection. You might start writing out a little bit of a shopping list. I've started writing out a little bit of a shopping list. Yeah, this game can be an addiction trigger. If you've got 5,000 kits in the backlog, this kit is going to make it 10,000.
His point is that the game makes you addicted to the model kits and GB4. This is a completely obvious point that speaks about his character more than anything to do with the critique of a video game. That's the whole point, to make players buy into the model kits and the game. Not sure how this is a negative.
Universe's new hero. This to me as a Gundam fan was kind of my favorite aspect of this game. It was just something I like to do, maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't, and that is, you can actually select the universes and just the parts of certain universes, and you can build yourself a mobile suit based in that universe. I find it's a fun way to actually come up with a little bit of a custom instead of using parts from everything. I made a custom that I feel would slot nicely into Gundam 00 by using just Gundam 00 parts. Same with Wing, just using different Wing aspects. If you love a certain series, as long as it's not the Witch from Mercury, you can really get in there and take bits and pieces from different suits and make your perfect suit from specific universes. For example, if you love something like G Gundam, you can just go in, select G Gundam only, take a bunch of G Gundam parts, add the attacks as martial arts, take some elements from...
This is just the sorting feature? Sure, it's a good feature for building and sorting through parts, but no one's going to say thank God for filing cabinets.
The story, if you can even call it that. If you're coming for the plot, I would almost say don't. Gundam series are known for their really intricate, detailed plots, no good, no evil, usually no good, no evil, two sides of the same coin, war is bad, complex issues, with robots somewhat in the middle. So as for the TLDR, this game right here is set in the Gundam Batlog universe, which may or may not be the Gundam Build Divers universe. It's kind of hard to say. The Gundam Build lines have kind of blurred, and I think they may all be the same universe, but I don't know. Basically what happens is, you're a guy, you turn up, you're new to it, you're awesome, everyone thinks you're great or wants to beat you. For some reason you're just greater than everyone and you save the Gundam world. Just cause you're awesome. This is also told in an almost visual novel kind of way where the characters just pop up. It is fully voice acted, you can choose English or Japanese and the text in either or, so you can have whatever mix and match you want. The conversations are kind of clunky because it is just the mobile suits in the background kind of emoting while things are happening. And when it comes to the actual in-game cutscenes, again, they're just kind of puppeted mobile suits. It's a little bit weird. The story is something we've seen thousands and thousands of times before, and I feel like I've literally seen this in one of the Gundam builds before. Someone is bad and has taken over the world of the Gunpla that we all love, you must save it. The characters are very tropey, extremely tropey, which you may love, may hate, and the bad guy is literally Kono Dio. I mean, come on. Also, I will mention there really isn't any connection to any Gundam universes at large, nothing really kind of has any effect on anything, and the only real cameo we get is some characters from one of the Gundam Batlogs. Otherwise, there's not really much Gundam to it.
If MGK is going to talk about how people come in expecting a well-written narrative about the tragedy of war from a breaker game, then I'm afraid his point is moot. The story is bad, no doubt about it, but his argument as to why it's bad is in of itself bad. Who comes into a breaker game expecting some Zeta tier plot? No one. Go write one yourself, that's what fanfiction is for. He also complains about the MCU being a Mary Sue, to which I say, the plot doesn't detriment from this, because it has more pressing issues. If you want good storytelling, don't expect it from an official breaker game. He also mentions how cutscenes in-game are just the characters just emoting. I'd say this is a very nothing burger argument. The characters are indeed trope reliant, so there's something we agree on.
Ultimates, the ones you know. Earlier on I mentioned that little palette on the right hand side of the screen which has all the innate abilities that all the parts on your mobile suit has that you can fire off whenever you want, and you just have to wait for the cooldowns. Well, on the other side of the screen, this is your big attacks, and it uses a thing known as the EX gauge. This builds up while you're fighting. It goes up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's numbers associated with those attacks down in the left hand side. These will be special attacks you will know from various series. Ultimate attacks, for example like the satellite cannon from Gundam X, the spinning twin busters from Gundam Wing, or the various kind of power-up modes that mobile suits have. For example, Wing Gundam Zero System, 00's Trans Am, S Gundam's Alice System, Exam System, Unicorn's NTD, pretty much all of that is in this game with the associated different effects, and with Unicorn Gundam it will actually separate into that NTD mode with all that glowing cycle frame. All of that is in the game, and that is pretty cool. Now I will mention though, essentially all of those transformations are kind of the same, and they just kind of give you a bit of a boost in combat. But it's cool that they're in it.
He's not necessarily wrong, no. But he just yaps about EX attacks, which can confuse viewers into thinking about actual ultimates. MGK should have talked about ultimates, but he actually never does throughout this entire video.
No sense of scale. Remember in Gundam Breaker 1 through 3, all those levels that made you know you're playing with a small-scale Gundam plastic model kit. You're not a real giant robot out in that real world, you're a little plastic model kit. So there was casino tables, build desks, Gundam boxes in the background, everything that made you know that you're a tiny little plastic model beating the crap out of other tiny little plastic models. That is not in this game, and that makes me so sad. This is more like Gundam Build Divers. If you don't know what Gundam Build Divers is, it's basically an online game that people have logged into, so it's just a game in a game. So these aren't actual plastic models fighting, it's digital data sadness. I like the idea of the little plastic models beating each other up. Now there is a...
He talks about how there's no map that allows you to know that you are just piloting a small plastic figurine. He's not wrong, but I don't think this is a pressing issue. Yes, the game goes out of its way to differentiate HG, SD, MG, but it's not called Gunpla Breaker, it's Gundam Breaker. MGK says the game feels more like a Divers than Builders, as if it was a bad thing, to which I'd say, so. That is the premise of this game's plot, an immersive VR game, is it not?
Extreme customization! This game, compared to the ones that came before, has the most ridiculous, off-the-charts level of customization. If you've been anywhere looking, well, I mean anywhere online, looking at the customs people have been making, they are crazy. You can do what you want, Magikarp this, Pokemon that. People have made crazy things because of the level of customization. You can make your serious robots alright, but you could also make crazy stuff too, and that's just fun. Except for the...
MGK talks about the wacky, goofy customs that people have been making with the build system. He's not wrong, it is an important part of a Breaker game that's been expressed in previous iterations, especially Breaker 3, but why didn't he just mention this in the building is half the game section?
I'm missing it like so many things in this game. You can't just load up pre-built OG Gundams. For example, if you just want to play a Strike Freedom, you should be able to just load a preset of Strike Freedom with all the parts attached together and the associated skills in the associated slots for using.
He also talks about being unable to play base units of kits, which is a point that is negated by his Universal Heroes section. I'd say stop being so lazy, but that seems to be his channel's mantra.
Everything is viable. When I started with this game, I was worried that I'd be stuck just using the best parts, not the nicest looking parts. To me, kind of the aesthetics was the most important aspect, and I didn't want to be stuck with no skills because of that. That's not an issue, thankfully. Every weapon and every body part is viable, you can level them all up, and they're really kind of extremely well balanced. No saber is any stronger really than any other saber, it just depends on the level. Same with the weapons, might shoot a little different, but the DPS on everything is essentially the same. On top of that, there's a thing called mastery. You get pieces from destroying Gundams, these are called parts enhance and parts evolve. Using the parts evolve, you can up the mastery level of an item, get it to max full gold stars, and all of its abilities become available to use all of the time, no matter what body part you're using. So if you had an ability on a body part that you liked, but you thought the body part looked crap, master it, use a nice looking body part, and you can still use its ability. For example, I spent the whole game using funnels and missile spam, but that meant I was covered in missile pods, which I didn't really like, so I usually minimized their size. However, after the end game, you can just take a body part that has loads of missiles on it, for example like the Fats, which has loads of missiles on it, mastery it, and then you can use those abilities freely no matter what body parts you're using. However, there is this weird caveat where the body part changes to the associated body part with the ability in a weird clear blue version for the duration of using the attack, which doesn't look great. And it can change the scale of your Gundam depending on if you've adjusted it. So it's a bit weird, but it still works.
He's right, but why isn't this mentioned in extreme customization or building is half the game? Could have went, the game's difficulty is depending on how well the quality of your parts and build is, you just have to meticulously upgrade everything. He positively mentions the upgrading system of this game and how it affects E.X/O.P attacks, but also goes out of his way to talk about how using E.X/O.P attacks not native to your build change your build to make it native mid-match. Which is a very cosmetic complaint and does not have much relevance here, but it does get annoying to look at time to time.
No Gundam music. There's no denying that Gundam has had some of the greatest anime music over the years. Here's a little bit of an example. Usual anime game kind of way, there is none of that in the game whatsoever. Not a single Gundam tune to be heard anywhere.
The game does make use of its own original soundtrack for music, but if he were to mention how Ultimates can alter the music and play covers of Gundam music according to your build, this would be a valid complaint, because it was a feature in previous games. But he didn't bother to.
The ultimate tool for Gunpla builders. When all is said and done and you're kind of done with the actual game aspect of the game, this is still a massively powerful tool for Gundam builders. Now, I don't customize kits that often, but when I do, I find one of the hardest aspects is just to conceptualize it first. What colors will work the best, what parts, and in a way you're taking a little bit of a risk once you finally commit. With this game you can actually set out the Gundam parts you want, even just the straight up Gundam kit that you want to color, and just try various colors on it. Try different decals, different decal color combinations, whether or not it would look good with battle damage or not. It really is the ultimate Gundam builder's tool. This right here, Gundam Breaker 4, is the perfect companion for any Gunpla builder and Gundam customizer. It is fantastic and it has all the tools you'll need to conceptualize a build before you start into it and potentially make a misstep. But
no. I can't just apply what I know from Breaker into reality, because that's absurd. You could use the game to conceptualize hypothetical customs, yes, but I can't just up and add a missile pod on an HG site. He does mention allowing builders to see how paint could turn out on a custom as a positive, which I agree with.
On the flip side to that, there's not much else. When it comes to Gundam Breaker 4, there really isn't a whole lot here for non-Gundam or non-Gunpla fans. If you're finding you're a bit Gund curious, you want to get into Gundam and you want to get into Gunpla, this might seem like a good first step, but it doesn't really feel like it. At its core, this is like a build simulator with a little bit of a game in order to get the parts. The game is only about half of it, and by the end game, a very grindy aspect of it, and very, very repetitive. It's just arenas, you break Gundams, you get parts to build. Also, it is $60 or €60 brand new, and if you're looking to get into Gundam, that could be invested somewhere a little bit better, like to get yourself a Gundam model kit and maybe something like a Crunchyroll subscription, and get into Gundam the old-fashioned way. I've got a list of videos for Gundam kits that are Gundarium tier. These are fantastic, you will love them. If you want to get into Gundam, just choose one of those and get watching some Gundam. This game right here feels like it expects you to know stuff already, and I can imagine there really isn't enough meat on the bones of this game to satisfy just gamers curious about Gundam.
So we're not going to mention the other game modes. Quest, Survival, bounty hunter, no. He also mentions how it's not a good entryway into Gundam, to which I say, duh. Newcomers should be watching the anime first or looking into beginner-friendly Gunpla as an entryway, not a game that has an established lineage with its own culture that it expects viewers to somewhat understand. He also shills his channel for the Gunpla side, which warrants me to mention. Overall, I do not think that MGK should be allowed to make a video called Top 10 Reasons Why You Should Buy GB4, and Why You Shouldn't, because he is a perfect representative of the Dunning-Kruger effect. He cannot thoroughly slice into something and grasp its essence in its entirety or to a point where an objective analysis can be safely made based on his findings. It also does not help that this also applies to his main content about the model kits, where he simply regurgitates popular opinions and fails to be able to understand that different model kits call for different treatment to properly critique them. If you, the viewer, believe I should not be able to call out MGK on his incompetence, then give me a few weeks and I will have made a more proper GB4 review. Thank you for your time.